Alrighty, folks, welcome back to another episode on Cut Right History. Today, we're going to talk about the changes that were made from the M16A1 to the M16A2, and a couple of the nuances that go along with it, the controversies that go along with it. So, other than that, let's just jump right in. So, the M16, after its foibles in the beginning, did become a very popular rifle. Shortened versions of it are made. It gets used for a long time. Introduced initially in '63, and then in the mid '80s, actually starting in the late '70s, NATO starts doing testing on a new cartridge. It's still 5.56, but the U.S. uses M193 at the time, so that's 55 grain. The NATO testing eventually, even though the U.S. did submit their 55 grain, comes out on top with the SS109 cartridge. That's the Belgian submission to the NATO 5.56 trial. So that's going to be 62 grain with a light armor-piercing steel penetrator in the middle, steel core. And what that means for the U.S. is these original M16s have a 1 in 12 barrel twist, or a rifling. Twist rate in the rifling, excuse me, geez. And that twist rate will not properly stabilize 62 grain, especially at any sort of range. So what that means is we need to upgrade or update the twist rate in our rifles. And at the time, the Marines had already been looking at ways to improve the M16A1. So as the early to mid 80s roll around, we decide we're going to need new barrels anyways to shoot this new NATO SS109 cartridge. So let's look at upgrading the whole rifle as well instead of just the barrel. So it actually starts with the Marines. They adopt the M16A2 in 1983. It doesn't roll out for a while, but officially it gets adopted in 83. And there are some strengthening upgrades. Let's just start from the top. The Marines wanted a farther adjustable rear sight. They wanted to be more precise. Their motto, every Marine and rifleman, they take pride in their rifleman's skills. So they wanted a sight to go along with that. Gene Stoner famously did not like this style of rear sight. He didn't like that basically they were quick adjustable. He thought that soldiers being nervous, wanting to fiddle with things, they would fiddle with the dials and throw the sights off. That's why you need a tool or a cartridge to mess with the M16A1. But the Marines wanted something a little more that they could dial in. The receiver was strengthened at the back here where the buffer tube attaches. You can see on the M16A1, there is basically a cutout or a divot in the casting on both sides there. That gets filled in on the A2 and strengthened up a bit. We get what is known as the government profile barrel. So we go from a pencil barrel on the M16A1 to a heavier barrel in front of the front sight block, but the government profile barrel is, the same profile underneath the handguards, but heavy out front. This example in particular is actually a Colt H-bar, so it is heavy all the way back, but on the real government issue M16A2s, they would be original pencil barrel diameter underneath the handguards. And speaking of the handguards, that's the other thing that changes. These were thought to be flimsy, and we needed to strengthen those up. So a new design comes out, And it's actually a little bit easier to manufacture too. It's easier on the armorers, on the guys in the field, all things like that. Because instead of having two different molds, two different polymer molds, a left and a right, we now have, these are split top and bottom, but they are actually the same mold. It's the same piece, top and bottom. So you only have to produce, you only need one mold to produce handguards for everything. And they're much, much stronger than the A1. Another change is the pistol grip. Profile stays roughly the same, but now we have that finger groove and the omission of the original spot for the sling swivel. Controversial there. A lot of people don't like the A2 pistol grip. I think it's kind of iconic, and I don't mind the finger groove, but to each their own. And the last major change, at least aesthetically speaking, is the buttstock was lengthened by about 3/4 of an inch. The A1 length is a little bit shorter. This is a little bit longer, again, to go along with that sort of precision shooting kind of mindset. Now, the functional difference is instead of having a safe, semi, and full auto setting, the M16A2 has a safe, semi, and 3-round burst setting. Also very controversial. The idea was if you have a limited 3-round burst, untrained soldiers wouldn't get scared at the first sign of combat and then dump a mag, which was seen a lot in Vietnam. If you mechanically limit that full auto to a just burst of 3, then they won't be dumping magazines. That was at least the thought process behind it. And it's, to me personally, it seems like a scapegoat to not train soldiers properly in full auto. I mean, these guns were basically almost always used in semi-auto anyways, but really it's just a way to not have to train your guys to shoot full auto properly. It's a way to spend less time training, which is unfortunate. I don't like that sort of mindset. The other problem with the implementation of this 3-round burst mechanism is it is a ratcheting system, which is pretty common for 3-round bursts, but it's a non-resetting ratcheting system, meaning that if you have this gun, a real M16A2, this is a semi-auto clone, if you have an M16A2 set to burst and you only fire 1 round of that burst, your next burst, provided you hold down the trigger the whole time, will only be 2 rounds. Or if you fire 2, the next one will be 1. It doesn't reset in between. Something like a Polish Tantal has a safe semi, full auto, and 3-round burst setting, but it has a fully resetting 3-round burst. If you don't finish your burst, it will simply reset and you can have a full 3-round burst on your next trigger pull, should you want it. Now, the other problem with the implementation of the 3-round burst setting is depending on the position of that ratchet, there's 3 positions, each one of those positions would yield a different trigger pull. So you had 3 distinct trigger pulls, and that doesn't lend itself very well to good marksmanship. And to sort of further the problem, that was the case even on semi-auto. That ratchet is still moving regardless of whether the selector itself is in the semi or 3-round burst position. It's still moving. You're still getting 3 different trigger pulls regardless of the fire mode that your gun is set in, which is poor implementation. There are a lot of guns who do it better than that. Like I said, the first one that comes to mind is the Polish Tantal, but that's it. That's my rant on that. Oh, the other thing I forgot to mention is the birdcage changes. The A1 has cutouts all the way around the flash hider. The A2 gets rid of the ones on the bottom so that you can lay prone and fire and kick up a lot less dust. But yeah, just some quick down low changes from the M16A1 to the M16A2. These would serve in official capacity as with, big army from 86 well through the 2000s. They served in, Mogadishu, Panama, early GWAT, mid GWAT. It would be supplanted by the M16A4, which comes around in the late 90s, but these stay in service well into the 2000s alongside the M16A4. And it has served even longer in other militaries that Colt sold them to, or that we gave them as military aid, stuff like that. And yeah, that's it. We can stop there. I'll stop ranting. And I appreciate you coming out. Let me know what you think of this this newer format. And like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And we'll catch you next time.